Welcome to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person.
Dan, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you today. I want to talk to our audience. Hello, audience. My name is Uncle Dave. I do a podcast with Dan Norton of the Columbus, Ohio Nortons. It is to do with Pokemon cards. It's called Koffee Talks. You can see it on the Dan Norton at DJGigabyte channel. Today, I want to talk to you guys because here's what I think's going on, and I'm not happy with it, okay? I need your help. Can you help me? I'm asking for your help. If a friend asked you for help, you'd give help, right? Well, I'm a friend, right? I'm kind of a friend to everyone in the hobby, so I need your help. I know we brought this up. I talked about it last podcast. I've talked about it many times. Someone needs to step up and show Uncle Dan how to do a highlight reel. Okay. Now, why? Uncle Dave, why do you keep going over this 1,000 times? Because I don't think our videos get the shout outs and the views that they should. There's some great videos, not by me. I don't say anything, but Dan's doing the work, the legwork. We just had one that did all of the different eras of Pokemon. It was his official eras tour. And, it's going to get a couple of hundred videos, and that's great. It's not good enough because these other videos that people put a lot of time and effort into, they do re-highlight them, repost them in some fashion, and they get another 50, 100, another 50, 100 views. But Dan is struggling with the learning curve for this process, and it just can't be that difficult. So which one of you is going to reach out as a favor to Uncle Dave and say, we're going to help you take a single video of yours, figure out how to take something out of it, put it out there so the template is there and developed, and Dan can do it moving forward. That's important to me. And I know there's a lot of you that are highly capable, but very busy, have no interest in helping us. You've got nothing to worry about in your life but yourselves. That's what you should be worried about. But sometimes you come over the cliff for a friend, because if you don't come over the cliff for a friend, the friend's going to go over the cliff. Does that make sense? Dan, please. Okay?
You're done. We're going to get into what we're actually talking about today.
Oh, okay, Dan. I will talk before I get into what we're going to talk about today. I'd like to say the following. I'd like to apologize for my attire, which you've seen 1,000 times before. Oftentimes, I will go upstairs before a podcast and I will redress myself, or I'll have an assistant redress me depending on how infirmed I am for that day. And I want to say that today I hurt myself while lifting weights because we had to do a quick one for my son before I had to get to the high school to do his practice, and I didn't get a chance to warm up effectively. So I have thrown my back out magnificently. And so I can barely move. So there was no chance I was going upstairs. So what you see is what you get. See the hair, guys? Not even combed today. Don't care. Don't care a bit. Today I'm going to be just like Dan. Just like Dan. Same hair, same body, not the same mind. Dan, I'd like to say a few other things. Just keep listening. We're having a lot of fun. We are not going to talk at all today about Black and White, the new sets that are coming out, because as you know, your wife was lucky enough to get one of each of the booster boxes the ETBs that came out from the Pokemon Center today with a drop that apparently extended all day long for several hours. People are really happy that there's more supply out there, limiting to only one, etc. Well, I will tell you that when these drops happen nowadays, the one person in the entire world who does not get them is me. I'm not crying poor. I'm not crying, infirmed. I'm not crying sad. I'm poor, infirmed, and sad. Okay, I am. Because the problem is, poor is not a rich thing. It's a satisfaction thing. I don't get to play in the game anymore. I never do it. I was in the queue all day and I never got in once. So I'm not happy, and that's why we're not talking about it. Okay, let's see. We're going to talk about my distribution promos. Okay. We did a thing on the distribution promos. I'm going to let Dan talk about this in a minute. That was today's podcast that came out, which is you'll see yesterday when this comes out today. And with respect to those distributor promos that we did, two other people have claimed that there are other ones. Okay, so Dan is going to talk about this. But someone sent me a picture of one from 2007. Supposedly, the stamps are not the same, so that gives us reason for skepticism. But there was one 2007, a Chicago Chimchar, and one we know somebody said they had one from Miami. They did not show me the picture of Piplup. I do not know the year. So Dan, you saw those pictures, and I know you've reached out to try to get more information, but we are not completely certain that they are real like the ones that we were aware of when we did the Koffee Talks podcast, correct?
Correct. So in that PokeGym thread, which I talked about in the last video, and which I linked in the comments or in the description of that video, the TPCI employee who jumped into the thread confirmed that the cards that were being talked about in the thread, which Piplup, Turtwig, and Munchlax had been mentioned in the thread, he confirmed that those are real. He didn't specifically say in his post the name of those three cards. Those were just the ones that had already been mentioned and the ones that were being talked about. So the Chimchar, at least that we've seen, the stamp looks very different. So on the three that you've got, there's the name of the city and the year, and then there's an extra design around the cards, or around the year, sorry, around the city. The Chimchar doesn't have that. It's just a very standard Chicago '07. I haven't obviously seen the Chimchar in person, so we can't compare the stamp directly, because it would be good to get the Chimchar and the Munchlax together in person to see how the Chicago's map over. The red flags we'd have about that were, one, the stamp looking just so very different compared to the other ones. Second, the fact that it's a duplicate year, so it's '07, which is the same as the Piplup, and the post from the TBCI employee said that these were made for the annual distributor meetings. So the fact that it's the same year but a different city as one that already exists, you'd ask, why would there be two when they when they would only have one annual distributor meeting? He specifically said annual. So if this Chimchar is real, my thought behind it would be potentially it was some other event or some other meeting within TBCI or Pokemon USA at the time, sorry, that they set up, and maybe they had some other meeting in some other city that wasn't this annual distributor meeting, and maybe they made a Chimchar for that. Maybe they were doing something in Chicago in 2007 that wasn't a distributor meeting and made a Chimchar for it. If the Chimchar comes back, I've reached out to some people I know who still have ties to TPCI who might be able to get in touch with people who were around at the time, who were working there in 2007, see if we can get any information back. But that would be my best guess, is that if this Chimchar does turn out to be real, if a Piplup from Miami does turn out to be a real card, it would be tied to some other Pokemon USA event rather than being tied to these distributor meetings, because it doesn't make sense that there would be multiple for the same year, or that the stamps would look so different to the other ones.
Dan, the card that someone sent me, this Chimchar from '07, it is graded by CGC. So if it's graded by CGC, Dan, it must be real, correct?
Well, CGC, we know, aren't infallible. They've made mistakes before. They may have graded as though the card's real because, like I say, these are cards with stamps on them. It may have been that they judged the stamp to be real. I don't know what provenance they have behind it, because obviously when CGC graded your pre-release Raichus, it's the same kind of thing. It's a regular card with a stamp, but obviously both me and you know that they looked fully into the provenance and the history of the cards, followed the paper trail. You've got all those signed documents from different people. Whoever owns this Chimchar hasn't shared what, if any, provenance they have on the Chimchar, whether they can in any way tie it back to someone who worked at TPCI or worked at Pokemon USA. That's kind of a mystery. If CGC do have some kind of paper trail or provenance or signed document from someone, if that's something they were willing to share, that would definitely shed some light on the situation. But currently, all we have is a picture of the card in the graded slab.
I have a statement that I make a lot of the time, Dan, and it's a joke. I've running joke. I've said it before with one of my partners on my financial advisory team, and we'll say, "Are you sure?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm 99% sure." And so 99% sure means, folks, that you are not sure. Period. That's that simple. So I asked Dan a rhetorical question just for fun's sake. He doesn't know what I'm looking for in an answer, which is funny because he's not supposed to. That's the fun of the podcast. And so the answer is CGC graded it. It must be real, right? And the answer is, of course, no, not necessarily. And so when I went to the person and who owns the card and talked about it, I said, "What can you tell me about this card?" And that person said, "I don't know. I have this card. It's really rare." And I said, "Well, what do you think? How many are out there?" And he said, "I don't know. I imagine there might have been 50 given out at whatever this was." There's no 50 given out at whatever this was, guys. When you see a card for the first time or second time at this point in my career in the hobby, I can't use that word, Dan. I have to throw money in a swear jar. But when you see it at this point and you understand that this card hasn't been out there, there's no 50 of these. So the only thing is, could it be real? Sure, it could, because it's unusual for something that's been around for this long to actually contain a stamp. In other words, a lot of people think that you could put a stamp on any Pokemon card and we can basically make it authentic into something that's fake, something that looks like it was supposed to in the past. A little bit unusual just because of the timing around all this. So that's the only thing that leads me to believe maybe there actually was something like this. But the fact that there's so few of them that have ever been put out there or come out of anywhere, that makes me skeptical and apprehensive. And so I will tell you, if I have a chance to get that card, if that person says to you, "Uncle Dave, you want to buy this, put in your collection one day," I might do it, but only for the purpose of, because it might be real, I would have it in the collection if I could buy it for a price that was not as much as this person's going to want to sell it for, likely. So meaning, based on rarity, maybe the card's a $5,000 to $10,000 card. But since I have real worries about its authenticity and the fact that there might not be another one that's in existence, when this card was some kind of event handed out card, there should be more in existence, I would pay very much less than that for an opportunity to have it. And if I didn't get it for less than that, I wouldn't have any interest in putting it in the collection, because there would be no provenance around it, virtually none whatsoever. Unless, of course, Dan, through some of his contacts or some of my contacts, come up with a different answer that would change things. But at this point, there's no existing provenance on the card. Dan may or may not put a picture in the video. If he does, feel free to reach out if you think you have any information on it, like the folks that reached out with the forum thread on the current post that we just did.
Yeah, I'll put a picture in. I'll make sure there's a picture in there for people to look at so they know what we're talking about, and you can see how it compares to the stamp that's on the distributors that we know about.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to say, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the comments that have come in recently, just because there's some ones that are thought provoking. So, and some of them aren't. They're not thought provoking at all. So I'm going to read you one that came in on my post, not on our Coffee Talks podcast, but it was on my post for these distributor promos. Okay, and here's what it said. This is by my good friend Geo Zeppelis, Zeppelis. So Gogo Zeppelis said to me, "Rich boomers invading the hobby for no reason other than wealth obsession, thumb pointing down, super cringe." So as you guys know, I am clearly a rich boomer. I am invading the hobby. I've not been around very often. And no reason that I'm involved other than wealth obsession, and I'm super cringe. So here's what I wrote to him. I wrote, "Who you calling rich? Who you calling a boomer? Why don't you try saying that to my rich boomer face? And I'll show you what cringe looks like." because, okay? And so he wasn't done. And he said the following: I got to get this on here. "You ain't going to be able to take any of it with you when you go, Gramps. Just an FYI. So I said, "Well, you got me there, Gogo Zeppelis. Unless they carefully put it in the coffin with me. Now that might make for a nice viral post, right?" So guys, I have to tell you something, and it's the truth. I really am only in the hobby for money. I really am I am a rich boomer, based on all boomer aspects of net worth. And I am planning to take all the cards with me when I am buried 6 foot under. So we do appreciate the positivity from anyone in whatever our social media stuff that comes to. But as we talked about in the last podcast, Coffee Talks, it's amazing how some people just have to get their opinions out there. And another social media influencer did another podcast today on another social media influencer's platform and said, "Boy, when it's going crazy and everybody's out there and talking, the small guys are good until they look like the big guys, and then they all of a sudden every turn in everybody's mind to look like a bad guy, even though all the big guys were once small guys too. So, Dan, do you want to comment on that?
Don't feed the trolls, David. It's
Okay.
just someone being a dick for no reason.
Okay, and you know what, guys? When Dan says trolls, I know a lot of the youngsters that are watching think about those small little guys that are in movies. Dan has similar hair, but I've always loved combing that hair and getting to know my trolls. But I don't always feed them. I figure that they've got a way of doing that simplistically through the troll community. Dan, would you have some comments like that you'd like to speak to today?
I mean, not like that. I'm not going to bring up those ones, but I have some comments on some recent videos we can talk about.
Okay, good.
The one wanted to briefly mention on the video that just went up today, the distributed promos one. Mike Martin, Pokepop, jumped on and mentioned when I spoke about the sample cards, I said that I bought mine from someone who said they worked for TPCI or Pokemon USA, and they got some when they left. And he mentioned that Pokemon USA didn't exist when the sample cards were made, and it was Creatures and Nintendo who had them made, and that's what violated their contract with Wizards. And to clarify on that, I was mistaken on saying that Pokemon USA created them, but I believe the person I spoke to who I bought them from did specifically mention working for Pokemon or Pokemon USA, so likely it was just the person I bought them from had either worked for Nintendo, then worked for Pokemon, or through some connections he made at Pokemon USA had been able to acquire a copy or some multiple copies. So that's where it came from, just dropping some clarity on that.
Okay. So thank you, Pokepop, and for the clarification. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you watching the podcast. I will say to anybody watching, since Dan did bring this up, and we have had Mr. Martin on the podcast before a while back, if you are interested in sample cards, I do believe that Mr. Martin still has many of them, some of them, a few of them. And I don't think he's ever thinking of selling them. And as a financial advisor, as an aging financial advisor whose recent health scares have put life into perspective, I'm going to tell you that Mike needs to sell some of these cards. I don't care if he wants to or not, he needs to sell them. So if you have any interest in looking at some sample cards, the ones that have the sample on them, sometime we'll do them another podcast on them, reach out to Dan and he'll get you in touch with Mike or whatever if you don't know how. And maybe he'll be willing to try to sell some of those cards to you, because I would love to see him monetize for the remainder of his life before the remainder of his life is gone and over with. Okay, Dan.
All right. A couple of comments from Gaknak on a couple of different videos. So the one we talked about that was to do with the advertising and social media. Towards the end of that video, I talked about the message I'd received from a company trying to sell my slabs that I don't really have. I don't really have a slab collection. And how it was just a copy and paste message. And Gaknak said, he mentioned the company, said that company sent me the same message twice in a row, same words, copy and pasted with no response in between. I don't know how much time elapsed between those, but company just cold calling out there everywhere.
Yeah.
He also said on the video about myself-in-law having a shared collection, or not having a shared collection, as it may be, said, I used to tell my wife that we shared collections, but I quickly learned that even though I thought it was a nice thing to be doing, it had the opposite feeling for her. So we have things that are mine, things that are hers, and things that are ours. Most things are ours, but the few things that aren't have been impactful. So maybe that's the way to go. Maybe a mostly shared collection, but then definitely keeping some stuff that's just mine or just Law's.
So I think that's a great comment. And I really appreciate the impactful part of that comment, because, you know, what he's saying is what works, and you got to go with it. And sometimes having your own identity means something. I'm going to throw a slant on this for those that are watching and tell you what I do. Okay. And if you do this enough, this is the way we have a certain administration in the country, that if you say something enough, it becomes reality to everybody listening. It's an unfortunate reality of the reality. So here's the deal. Do my wife and I share my Pokemon card collection? My Pokemon card collection? Financially, we do. I suppose in our hearts, we don't. But I tell her all the time that the Pokemon card collection is hers. This is your collection. I'm just doing stuff with it and whatever. And the more I tell her that, the more she really feels like she has an ownership in the collection. So I encourage all of you that want to do that and want to try to share don't just talk about it from the standpoint of, well, this is yours and this is mine, but really believe this is ours and yours and yours and yours. And then the other person believes it too. And I don't think there's as much competitiveness about needing to have something separate. Now, Dan will tell you what happened today. I'm only going to let you have 30 seconds to a minute on this, Dan, because you know I'll blow up and I'll kill you. And he's going to tell you why today was another sign from up above that he and Laura should begin the transition to sharing their collections. Daniel?
Well, what happened today was we were trying to buy those new ETBs from the Pokemon Center, and as soon as Law got in and bought a pair on Law's account, I was through the queue, and then as soon as I tried to put them into my cart, I got fully blocked from the Pokemon Center because our IP address had already made a purchase. So even though I was trying to use my account and I was logged in as me, we fully got blocked. And then Law at work tried to order a set from me under my account, but because we have the same billing address, it again got blocked. So that's what happened
So,
there.
Dan, these are all the magnificent signs. The good news is my collection stopped a couple of drops ago. So past let me just think would be Surging Sparks. After Surging Sparks guy, I will no longer lay claim to the title of the owner of the most complete Pokemon card English language collection in the world. It is a valid claim through the end of Surging Sparks. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
A little while back when we talked about Worlds decks and Championship Arena and stuff, someone requested that we do a video on the different languages of Worlds promos, which is something we definitely could talk about at one point, because even though for both of us English is our main collection, the Worlds promos, at least for me, are kind of an exception where I like to have the full layout of all the different languages in my binder. And I know you, David, you try and keep a sealed pack with all the languages in them, as well as having the one loose English one in your binder. So that's definitely one we can make a note on and come back to later.
Yeah, and when you talk about different worlds' languages, we recently did a podcast on the Vivillon. Uh, I don't know if we did. Did we do it on the Vivillon specifically? Was that what it was about?
Yeah, that was the
Yes.
main topic of that, yeah.
Okay. And so I'm completely enthralled with those cards. Okay, I cannot get them off my mind. And if the Russian one weren't so expensive, and et cetera, and the Korean one, and you go on, I would have already bought them. Since that podcast, I've been following them, looking at them, and they're not inexpensive at all. So I want to tell you guys what I did, just because it's, you guys care about what Uncle Dave does every once in a while. Most of you don't, but you guys are kind enough to listen, and I appreciate that. So here's what I did. I have this daughter, and I post about her maybe once a year on her birthday and ask you guys to come and date her. And, everybody's willing. It doesn't matter how you identify. And I offer this, what is it? What do you give a dowry when somebody eventually gets married to her, of a booster box first edition base set? So it's worth it to just give her a try, but it doesn't sound right. So, anyways, she and I don't get along all that well, just because she's a youngster and she's right about everything, and I'm 100% wrong about everything.
And you keep trying to sell it to your Pokemon followers on the internet?
Yes, but that's not a bad thing. Wait a minute, Dan. Dan, she doesn't mind that. That's not okay. You're right. I guess somebody could take that as a conclusion, but that's not what my intention was. We haven't got along for years. So, though I love her to death and she can't stand me. So here's the thing. I went out after our podcast and I bought a toy. It's by TOMY. That's the name of the manufacturer. And it's a little toy that has a Vivillon, a little pink Vivillon butterfly in it with a Pikachu. It was about $35 or $40, nice shape. And she loves butterflies. And so I bought it for her, and one day I left it in her room where it's just got the two things in the box. And she came down and she said, "That was really sweet. Thank you." And so sometimes it's a silent gesture that can be positive. She's a big butterfly fan. She's got, I think so far she's got, if I recall, 47 tattooed on her body. No, it's not that many, but there's definitely a few. And so this was a great way to acknowledge something that's one of her favorites and do something that I thought was really cute. And if there ever comes a day where I actually feel like I can afford to buy the Vivillon variants and actually have a shot at owning most, or not, if not all of them, I would actually put that away and hope that one day when I'm gone, maybe she looks back at my legacy and thinks this was kind of a cute tribute for her over the course of time. So an idea for those of you: find something in a Pokemon hobby that somebody that you love might like. And, that kind of introduces them to the hobby, but also tells you something that you're thinking about them.
So yes, to David who commented this, at some point we may talk about the different languages of Worlds promos.
Okay, good. Good,
which is
Dan.
where
We
that
can't just
comment came
go.
from.
We can't just, Dan. If you just give one answer and you don't embellish anything, the podcast will be
Yeah.
what it's intended to be, which is only 4.5 minutes. We know you don't want that from a watch time standpoint.
No. In that same video, Jeffrey Hurchin commented saying his name is in the booklet for the 2023 World's Decks. Law's name is actually in quite a few of the booklets now as well. I think going back maybe to about 2016, actually, Law's name is in there for all of them, which is pretty cool. The World's Decks come with a booklet that tells you all the staff that worked at that Worlds.
I did not know that. That's a pretty cool thing. Now, I would say it sure would feel like if your name's in the booklet, there should be some, you know, stipend that's paid for you being involved in that whole process if you're going to put it in there anyways, credits and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, we can't force them to do it. It's just I wish it was more. I know that Lore could certainly use a few more dollars to hand over to you. So
Well, if you're in the booklet, it means you probably got paid to go to Worlds, so I think that's probably enough. The flight and the hotel and all the extra stuff that comes with it.
well, from now on, Dan, I'm going to open every single booklet and I'm going to say, hey, I know her, I know him.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm not in there, but some people you know might be. All right, another one from David. This was on the discussion again about myself and Law collecting. I often find it difficult to take unsolicited advice. Usually, when I share something with a friend, I often get comments or advice. However, it makes the statement I made or the situation I share ahistorical, right? It often isolates the situation story to a single moment rather than trusting I have thought it through and the complexity and layers it is intertwined in. I much rather have someone ask me questions about how I feel to find out if I've thought of the advice they're about to give rather than giving advice based on this one specific topic that I shared. Just my 2 cents in relation to the listing topic. He's saying you should ask me more questions rather than just telling me what to do, David. In the same way, unless I am asked for specific advice, I ask questions to understand the thought process behind the statement or situation my friend shares with me. For example, if someone says they only want to collect Japanese cards, even if I believe that diversifying or collecting other types of cards are smarter, I could ask questions to find out the rationale behind it before I state what I think or give advice before assuming the reasons behind why the person only collects Japanese cards. So it is a good comment. I will say, normally in real life, that's more how conversations would go between the two of us, but on a podcast, that doesn't really work out too well, and it's better when David just jumps on and starts dishing out unsolicited advice.
Well, and Dan, of course, I feel like I do know you. I mean, I appreciate the comment. I really appreciate how reflective and thoughtful the comment was, and how extensive. So thank you for that, David. So Dan and I know each other well, and we've been dealing with each other for years and years now, and so we've had some of these conversations together over the course of time. And I feel like I know a little bit about Dan to be able to come up with some of these suggestions. These aren't just random and me trying to bully. I have no intention of doing that. And I'll give you another example. This is when I take consignments on for selling other people's collections. So people come and say, here's the cards, go sell them. But I never just go sell them. I need to talk to the folks about what are your financial goals? How much money are you looking to, realize from this? If they have any idea, do they have realistic or unrealistic expectations? What's the time frame involved? Because they need something quickly or they can wait longer. Obviously, if you can wait longer, you can get more money. But I'm trying to take whatever input they give and understand everyone's situation. That's what a financial advisor does, to try to provide the best advice possible with that and for that information and situation. So that was my whole intent. I think that's what the comment was kind of saying as well. Don't be afraid to ask questions, solicit information from all different perspectives. Dan will always take a comment from his perspective, and I will always take it from mine. And at the end of the day, Dan will always win. So Dan, it's 1-0 you again in another podcast that I'm exorbitantly lost. Thanks.
Yeah. One last comment.
Are you listening to this? Are you listening to this? You know what? You can do all the licking you want, but you're not. But this is a bad situation. You should hop on camera. Go ahead.
One last comment to talk about. Quilly B said on the video about advertising social media, the other thing about paid promotion on social media that can be very powerful is that often with very little investment, the boost in views, likes, or whatever you get with the promo can bump a video on YouTube or post on Instagram into the native suggestion algorithm that promotes popular things. So on Instagram, if you promote a post and it gets extra likes via the promotion, it can start getting put on people's For You pages via the organic algorithmic selection functions that IG has to put popular posts on the right audience's feed for a longer time than the promotion is even running. It's a double whammy, non-linear boost oftentimes. That's totally true. That is one thing I have seen with those videos that I've promoted, is that even after the promotion ends, those specific videos are getting more views than videos I didn't promote, even though they're no longer being promoted, because of the fact that they're just seen as popular videos. It's whether, people might see them in their For You box, and people are more likely to click on a video that has thousands of views rather than hundreds. So it is kind of just a get the ball rolling, ride the wave that's going. It does just keep growing even after those promotions end. It's another great thing, and the channel as a whole will get promoted more once I'm hitting those milestones like the 10,000 subs. Even once I end the promotions, even if I'm not doing a promotion for the channel or for a certain video, it's more likely to get pushed out naturally and organically because I have this number backing it up.
You know what's interesting about that to me, Dan, is I wonder if you could re-promote a video. I'm sure you can, obviously. So you put it out there for promotion again. And we know that no matter what, it's going to increase the views. And so the 400 is going to become 800, going to become 1600, whatever. That's the good news. I don't know necessarily if it doesn't get pushed out to the same people. That would not be a great use of money for the pushing. But what's interesting is if the views increase, and now these become the videos that have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25,000 views, they will, when I watch videos, I tend to look for the ones that have more views as well, because I think they're more popular, more people are watching them. And that may drive more people to you, in the long run as well. So all of these different things to test and try, I would definitely be doing that if I wasn't worried about it necessarily going all to the same people in the same demographic space that it went to the first time you promoted it.
I mean, there are definitely videos that I promoted earlier where I didn't include some countries, where I think I focused mainly on the USA and the UK as being promoted. But some of the recent ones, I've gone for more what they recommended, which included like Brazil and other countries in South America and Latin America. And those are where a lot of subscribers have come from. So potentially, if I wanted to reboost an older video that I had already boosted, I could boost it and focus it more on those areas and those demographics and get some more promotion there. Or if I had one where I'd already boosted it in those areas, I could look at maybe boosting it in Australia or something. There's different ways you can go about it to make sure it's not going to the same people every time.
Okay. And I think promotion wise, I mean, again, I don't know, eventually you might run out of money to promote and boost and, the rest of it. But regardless, this new one that we did on the distributor promos, I think it's a very much a curiosity. It's almost like what are they like when you have the museums out there? What are those museums when the Curiosity Museum? You know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay, but you don't want to say the name on the podcast, Dan?
Well, I don't know the name of it, but I know what you mean. I know what a curiosity.
A wacky world of whatever. Everybody watching knows exactly what I'm talking about, but I can't come up with it. So thanks a lot.
Ripley's Believe It or Not? Is that
Ripley's
what
Believe It or Not. So those, perfect. Thanks, Dan. So Ripley's Believe It or Not, this is sort of an example of Believe It or Not that these distributor promos exist. And here's the E4 thing, and here's this other person. So I think there's enough aura around it. And I think just the fact that someone commented today and said, hey, can you lend more clarity on this? And we could point him to your Coffee Talks video. That's kind of cool. So yeah, that's the good news about the information, the evergreen information we continue to put out there. I have just one thing in closing, unless you'd like to say something else, Dan. I don't want to cut you off in any way.
I will say, only problem on boosting that distributor video is because it's a Coffee Talks, it takes 10 minutes to get to the point.
Well, that's true. And that's a perfect segue for me to say this. As I said in the beginning, for anybody still watching, can you help? Can you guys help us at all? Even if you want to help me and I'll figure it out, call me and talk to me, and I'll take an old video I did from 2 years ago and we'll put it up and we'll just take out a highlight segment from it so we can help Dan do that. My concern here is I think that more of these should be viewed. I think it's good enough content that we should get it out to more than 150 or 200. I think sometimes you have to boost it a little bit in the sense of highlighting to be able to do that. I will say the following thing just from a personal standpoint. I'm going to be running a series of sales. I'm going to be continuing to run a series of sales. I've recently taken on some consignment stuff. The seller is very reasonable as to his or her expectations. So you're going to see these cards coming out on my Instagram every single day. Well, at least if I'm in town and I can post them. And there's going to be some very cheap cards that are just great buys that are, like play, whatever. And there's going to be some more expensive cards like the last couple of days. Feel free to make offers. Okay. I can't promise, but I'm talking about cards that are beautiful cards that might be 2,500 and I'm willing to sell it for 17 or 18. That's a big, huge discount from the markets. You just have to have the courage and guts and get it, go after it type of attitude to say, Uncle Dave, I'd like to make you an offer. And the worst I can say is no. But I always try to say yes to whatever I can. So definitely pay attention to all of that. And hopefully that can be a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah. On the topic of highlighting again, a lot of it is just time. Like, the other day, I put out an hour and 10-minute video, the eras to a video with images of dozens and dozens of cards, which even though Law helped me with those, that was a less than 24-hour turnaround for an hour and 10-minute video. Like, between that and cooking and eating and sleeping, it takes up a lot of my day, I will say. So
Dan,
if there's something, if there's some program someone can recommend, like someone recommended a program to Law over the weekend, I still need to look into. But if there's a program that someone can recommend that can just make it super quick to do these highlights or do the, when we say highlights, when I'm talking about YouTube videos, we're talking about the reels for Instagram, that kind of thing. So if someone just knows of a program, you don't have to teach me how to do it. Just recommend a program, and when I get a chance, I will look into it.
Well, and I told you already, there's two guys that are already doing it on recent podcasts I did. Justin Windhorst of Pokemon or Pokemon Wonder and Colt of Pikachu. Both of them are just pieces of the two of us talking. And they've got these words that come over so everybody can read them and know exactly what's being said. And they're only a 1-minute thing or less, and that points them back to the videos. And so when you're talking about all the work involved in what you're doing, it's much appreciated by me and all of our viewers. And it does take a lot of work to at least get the initial video out there, but it doesn't take nearly as much work to try to get the rest of it highlighted out. And so the choices, guys, and I love the analytical ones of you who actually keep commenting and keep us grounded in your philosophical, thought process. Comment right now. And here's what I want you to say. Do you think from an efficiencies of scale perspective, it was worth Dan and I doing this video today, a daily video that took 38 minutes or whatever we're going to be, and just talked about all of the things that I think we just keep this as a continuous dialogue about Pokemon and interesting things and comments? Or would it have been better if Dan didn't do this today and did more of a highlight situation of something else that came out that maybe was more, that had more meat on the bone? And that's really the idea that I have. I don't want to take it away from Dan. I'm trying to increase his views, but I do think that there's something to be said about the videos that he does. That Eras one with all those pictures was incredible and a lot of meat on the bone. And we're going to put it out there and it's going to be gone in a week. And unless somebody wants to go back and find it, they can't. So I truly believe I know what's right for Dan here. But if you listen to the comments we just talked about, I was it David that criticized, I think, maybe I absolutely don't. And I'm full of a baloney of myself. So let us know, ground us, get us to point A, from point A to point B, and let's get Dan's journey surging upwards as fast as possible.
Well, I'll tell you what, we had originally said we were taking this weekend off because I was supposed to be traveling out of state and you had a basketball tournament to go to. I'm not going to be traveling out of state anymore because Law has to work. So why don't we still say we'll just come back for Coffee Talks, a record on Monday to publish on Tuesday. That'll give me a long weekend. I'll still have a couple of videos going up that aren't Coffee Talks videos. That'll give me a long weekend and I can look into some of these programs over the weekend.
Okay, that's great. And that's a great idea, Dan. I think there's at least, looking into it's the best you can do. And I'm going to get off now with you, and I'm going to call out and see if Pikachu can maybe get to you as well. And maybe just at least tell you what he's done. I know he's not doing anything really sophisticated. I know he's using, like you use Zencaster, which is so much more, robust as an app than what he's using, which is more that live stream or Barnyard or whatever it is. Because I know it doesn't have different audio feeds and whatever. And we'll see if maybe these folks can help, But I'm excited about it. I think the content that you're doing, notwithstanding my presence involved in it, deserves to be seen by a lot more people. And so let's see what we can do,
Yeah, well, I'll look into it. I'll try and have answers and stuff by next week. So for the people watching, we will be back with Coffee Talks Tuesday. We'll record on Monday for Tuesday. Yeah, it's nearly a week, but I'll have some other videos up over the weekend, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, with music by More Than Never and artwork by Lore Norton. A special thanks to all our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to.